Okay, so today we're going to be connecting the power from the RM650X Corsair power supply to the MSI Z170a Pro Carbon. And this is the cable that is supplied with the Corsair RM650X. We're going to basically take these connectors, we're going to plug them into the modular jacks here. Let's see if I can do this without knocking things off the table. And yeah, basically there's these little levers here, so these need to be on the bottom since we're plugging into the bottom jack here. Okay, so that one goes in okay. Alright. Just making sure that's nicely seated. Now I take this, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So that's a 10-pin connector there. And so that provides some extra. I'm not sure why they actually do that, but I know it's for backward compatibility reasons. Okay. Alright, so that's now firmly in there. Then it's a question of what to do with this. I'm going to route this. I could go underneath here. The main thing is I need to come out and I need to plug into this power connection here. So really, maybe I should have done this first. Let's see if I can route that. Just making sure that I have minimal bends here on the cables. Alright, so I finally have the cable coming out where I want it to be. Once again, this is a heavy cable, and I want to make sure that my lever here is on the right side, so it needs to latch here. So it's going to latch around here, and I'm just plugging it into this J Power 1 on the MSI Z170a Pro Carbon. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, looks like that's in there pretty good. I'm just going to take it out because I didn't like that snap there. But one thing you can see with the power connections, all the pins are nicely protected, so they're very unlikely to bend. I like when that happens because I like when the pins are nicely protected because I don't like bending pins. Alright, so there we go. That's one connection. So that's the main power to the motherboard. Cut. Now we're going to connect the CPU power from the RM650X to the MSI Z170a Pro Carbon. We're going to use the Type 4 connector, and we're using this far area here where it says for CPU power. And we're going to plug that boy in like that. That seats in very nicely. I'm going to route the cables up through the back here again. I should be able to come up through this top grommet here. And there. Okay, so great. So the power connector is coming through nicely. I want to make sure I have plenty of slack here. The main thing is just keep track of where the lever is. The lever is on this side, and I want to basically just connect it into this J Power 2. J Power 2 is for the CPU. Of course, I'm having a little trouble seeing around my own hands, so I know you guys can't see. but it does fit nicely. Once you get in there. Alright, so that looks good. So that is the basic power to the CPU and the motherboard. Okay, so today we're one step closer to doing a smoke test with our MSI Z170a Pro Carbon and our Corsair H110i Cooling System. So before we can do that, we have to connect the power switch. And since the power switch is on the JFP1 connector with a whole bunch of other things, I'm going to connect them all up because it just makes it a little bit easier to connect everything. It kind of helps you keep your place. So I'm going to start with the HDD LED because that's the lower two. It's going to be, if you look here, it's the 1 and the 3 pin. So we're going to go and we're going to take the HDD LED, which is the connector from the Corsair 780T case, and we're going to connect it over here to the I'm going to try and make sure I don't tangle my wires too much, making sure I ground myself before I touch anything, but basically it's just going to go right here, essentially upside down on the JFP1 pins. So right above that, if you look here, it goes power LED 1, power LED positive, power LED minus. Of course, then we have the reset switch and then the power switch. So I might see if I can do the power switch and the reset switch first. So let's see what we got here. So this is the reset switch. As you can see, reset switch is right next to the HDD LED, and so we're going to basically put that. So we have to flip it upside down and make sure I don't get the wires too tangled once again, and basically just put that in there. So that's the reset switch. It allows you to do a reset on the motherboard from the front panel. Alright, so we got that. There's a reserved pin there that we're not going to be using, and then there's no pin right above that. So of course the important thing for the smoke test is I want to get this power switch connected. Without that power switch, we will not be able to, without this guy here, we will not be able to even turn on the motherboard. So this is essential. The case has to have the power switch connected. So the power switch is going to be over the reset switch. So basically, if we look at the pins there, cameraman, can you zoom in on the pins there? Mm-hmm. I'm going right over the reset switch connector, and I'm going to basically connect this guy if I can. So since there's no pin to the right of this, it's right flush up over the reset switch, and that leaves us with only two more to connect, and that's our power LED plus and minus. So I like to do all of these at the same time, just because if you don't, it's if you just try to do one or two of them, it kind of leaves things half done here. So anyway, so this is the power LED plus. I have to locate the right one here. So power LED plus is right here. That's going to go all the way to the left. I'm going to do the power LED minus first and put that right next to the power switch. It slides on right like that, and then I can just put this right next to it. It kind of helps to have all these on at the same time. At least that's what I find. Makes it a little bit easier. So with that, I believe our next step is that we may be able to do a power up test and just see if we can get in the BIOS. Okay, so now we're ready to do a smoke test of the MSI Z170a Pro Carbon in the Corsair 780T case. And now that we have the Corsair H110i cooling system, we basically want to make sure that we're adequately cooling things. So I'm going to take you through the steps that I did. I just did a dry run to make sure that everything's okay here. The first thing I did, and I'm not going to do this right now, is I used some of the spray when it was off, just to make sure that there wasn't any debris, any iron filings or anything from the screws. And once you spray it, both sides, front and back, just let it rest for a couple minutes, just in case there's any condensation from the spray. But this should clear it off nicely. Next step, you want to plug it in. So back here, we're going to basically plug in the power, and after you plug in the power, you want to make sure you have your DVI cable connected for your monitor. As we found out with the first smoke test and attempt to get it into BIOS, if you use an HDMI, it doesn't seem to work quite as well, so you definitely use a DVI connection for your monitor. So this is just a regular Acer monitor, nothing special. It's not a TV, and it works just fine with this motherboard. Okay, so at this point, we haven't connected all the cables. We still have quite a few of the cables from the case that have not yet been connected, and we're going to connect those later. The main thing we did do is we connected the power and reset switches, and that's adequate for starting up the MSI Z170a Carbon. So here we go. So the goal is to get into BIOS, and we're going to throw first the switch back here, and then you turn on the front panel switch. Okay, and so if you come over here and look at the motherboard itself, you'll see that some of the debug LEDs come on initially, but then they go off. And if you come over here, you see we go right into BIOS because we don't actually have anything, we don't have any drives, there's no bootable drives right now at all. And look at the CPU temperature. If you remember last time we did this, we had no CPU cooling mechanism on there. It got up to 100 degrees Celsius very, very quickly. Now you can see it's hovering at about 27 to 28 degrees Celsius. Motherboard temperature is the same as it was before, 31 degrees Celsius. So that's a really good cooling job that the Corsair H110i is doing for the CPU. That CPU is nice and cool. So at this point we're ready to move forward. We're going to connect the rest of the cables, and then we're going to try to install Windows.